thanks for tuning into Functions 101 series, guys. This is a CRM community learning series initiative. Today you'll learn to harness the power of functions in Zoho. I hope you all have your CRMs open in front of you because as we go, we'll be testing out a few things and I want you to try it out with me. Before we get any further, let me introduce myself. My name is Anu. I'm a community relations specialist here at Zoho. If you've been to our online community forums, you'd have seen my name pop up a couple of times. If you haven't, please go to our forums. All right, with me, I do have some panelists, Sendil Kumar and Ram Prasad. They're both experts in this language, and they'll be tending to your questions. Let me tell you a little bit about why we decided to do this function series in the first place. Now, as you'd have guessed, being a relations specialist, coding is definitely not my forte. And I wasn't really keen on figuring out how that was done. I just leave it to experts like Ram and Sendil here. But off late in our forums, I start seeing this surge in the custom function requests. So I decided to pick it up and figure out what it was about. Turns out it's pretty easy. I'm not telling you because I work here at Zoho, but it really, really is. And trust me, if I can pick it up, in my opinion, literally anybody else can pick it up, right? So that is why we decided to do this series, and I thought I would teach you all what I learned. You can be a CRM admin, a developer, or just a curious nerd like me to learn how to code with Deluge. It is, after all, the programming language for non-programmers. Wondering what Deluge is or why we call it that? Well, that was the first question I had when I started. What is Deluge? Well, it's actually an abbreviation for Data Enriched Language for the Universal Grid Environment. Yep, now we know why they call it Deluge, because it's way more easier to say it, of course. But basically, what it is, it's an online scripting language that lets you write logic and automate actions within a Zoho app, across Zoho apps, or even to third party. And don't worry, you guys, I do know we're all from different industries and have different problems to solve. But I guess it's safe to say there's no CRM software out there that has an out-of-the-box solution to all the business problems across all the different verticals. But a provision to find solutions and quickly build them outside the box. Now that's the key to working around it. If it's fun and easy to learn like Deluge, well, that's just a plus. Just saying. Deluge script, as you can see, is pretty easy to play around with, and it provides a drag and drop user interface. This lets you add the scripts without having to learn them by heart or remember the syntaxes and functions. Let me address a few common challenges we can overcome with functions. Maybe that'll give you a better idea of what we're trying to solve here. Well, it is a no-brainer that prompt callbacks and engagement right through the purchase cycle do have a direct bearing on your lead conversion. Now, to do this, it's crucial that you call or email the clients in their time zone. Wouldn't it be great if the CRM automatically sorts your leads based on their time zone? Next one. Web forms are one of the easiest ways to generate leads in any organization. You know that. Be it an access form that lets prospects fill out like an on-demand webinar, or even a contact us form on your website, this is one of the activities that you cannot do away with. However, we do know that not all of them fill out all the details, now do they? Zoho CRM's phone bridge integration, if you already have them, will allow you to integrate a third-party phone bridge app to Zoho so you can make calls through it. Now, they demand that the phone numbers are in a certain specified format, say with a country code. Let custom functions save you the pain of having to edit the record manually to update the country codes. Let the custom functions do it for you automatically. Winning a deal is never easy. I know what you're thinking. You can say that again, huh? There's a lot of things you need to do in order to follow through with a deal. For instance, you need to schedule a call, you need to review a proposal, you need to schedule a product demo, you need to send them an email follow-up. Now, all of this are documented as tasks in your CRM. And yes, they're only going to make sense as long as the deal is closed. Now, after the deal is completed, there's no need for you to follow up with that task, is there? Now, it does take a little bit of your time now to manually go in and close all the related tasks. Won't it be convenient to close all the tasks when the deal stage is changed to closed? I know, right? Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Why should I learn this? Well, custom functions provide immense flexibility and empowers you to explore alternate ways of solving a CRM problem. If you hired a developer at some point to help you with a piece of code and then your business scales, you shouldn't have to call them again to make the smallest of changes. That's really costly affair. They also eliminate the need for you to wait for a feature to be built into a product. You have more control on what you want and when you want it done. After all, your business shouldn't have to depend or wait on us releasing a feature, right? You can use the power to customize or align your Zoho CRM to the business processes that you follow. This way, you're unlocking the Zoho CRM's complete potential. By learning this super easy, fun coding language, you can also help others or even make a living out of it. I mean, if you fancy something like that. You can be a Deluge expert, and it can be a skill set that you can add to your social media bio. Trust me, companies are going to come swarming in looking for you. So far, we saw some of the obstacles you can overcome with functions. Let's now take a look at what I've planned for this series. The first two sessions, I want to focus on understanding Zoho Deluge, which is our in house coding platform. And from the third session onwards, we'll start building functions from scratch. I've selected the top use cases from the ones we get on the community forums, but feel free to shoot your questions on the questions interface. From the fourth session onwards, you'll start to understand the functions that we already have in the functions library. Now you can find a set of functions within your Zoho CRM as well as on Zoho community. Just go to community.zoho.com and you'll see a function section where you'll see a library of functions already available to you. You will start understanding these functions after session 4, and you can make the slightest of changes so that it tailors to your business needs. All right, let's get to it then. I hope you're all ready with your CRMs logged in. I'd like you to follow these instructions with me to open the functions section. Okay, so here goes. Go to your Zoho CRM. Top right, you will see setup. Click on that. Further down, you should see automations. And then you'll see actions. Click on actions. Now, here on top, you should see custom functions. Click on that. Now click on plus configure function. This is the gallery I was talking about. And then you have write your own at the far bottom. That's what you want to click on. Now see this white space? We're going to start filling this up soon, okay? But before we start filling this up, let's understand some basics and what we're going to fill up over here, okay? Let's start off with variables. Now, variables are used to define a value. Think of it like a big bucket with a name on it. You can put anything inside this bucket, but the name stays the same. What's inside the bucket is called the value of the variable. Check out the following example where you can create a variable name with the value as John, like name equals John. You will understand why it's written within quotes and it ends in a semicolon very shortly. Now you can try this out on your own, where you have to create a variable my name and set the value as your actual name. Don't forget the semicolon. And I know maybe this is a little bit too fast, so I'm going to give you a sneak peek. You say name equals, within quotes, your name, semicolon. Okay? and go. Okay, let me try it out with you now. My name equals within quotes, semicolon, and click on Save and Execute Script. Ta-da! No errors. So you just learned the first step to Deluge, so that's variables. Now I want to show you very quickly a piece of code that determines whether a student has passed the exam or failed the exam. So according to this logic, it says if the marks are greater than 40 and less than 100, then yes, the student has passed the exam. And if in case he scored less than 40, then yes, of course, he's failed the exam. Now that's what this code's logic is. It's not the complete code, it's just the logical part of the code. But the reason I'm explaining this right now is to tell you that when you look at marks, and marks is greater than 40 and marks is less than 100, then you understand that marks is the variable here. Because whatever value you assign to marks, it checks based on that. So here marks is the variable. In this slide, I did forget to mark one of the variables. If you're able to figure it out, take a screenshot now and post it on our forums with the hashtag Functions101, and you will receive extra points on the community. Okay? Now we've reached a point where we've assigned the bucket with a value, but we're not sure what that value is or if it's right. Now, for that, we need to have a sort of output statement that displays the final output of the entire expression. These are called debuggers, right? Now, the syntax or the way that it's written is info, space, and whatever you want to see in the final output. Let's take, for example, the same variable name John. Now, we know that name equals John, but we don't know. Let's say you want to look at the bucket. Let's go back to our bucket example. You're basically telling the bucket to tell you what is inside it. So you're just going to call the bucket, and the bucket is going to tell you what value is sitting inside it. It doesn't make sense in the bucket world, but definitely makes sense in the coding world. So this one, the one where the name equals John, if we were to print it, we'll say name equals John, and then we're going to say info space name. Now that's the debugger statement, and it'll basically tell you that John is inside name. Okay. For more clarity, let me show you that example. Name equals, we have John, right? Now, if I want to see and find out what's inside name, I just got to say info name, and it'll tell you John is sitting inside. Okay, so let's go back to our example. Try this out with me. Create the variable name my underscore name, and then set the value as your own name. Also print this value. Don't worry about making mistakes. We all do it, and we learn from it. Okay, let me try it with you then. So unlike last time, this time we have variable name as my underscore name. So we're going to say my underscore name is equal to Anu. Now, what is inside my underscore name? See how it pre-populates as I type it out? Alright, so you save and execute script. It tells you, hey, Anu's what's sitting inside my underscore name. So that's how you print out the final output of a particular code. Going back to our example of the marks, here the display message or the final success message of whether they've passed the exam or failed the exam is shown with the help of this debugger. So I've highlighted the info pass and the info fail whenever it meets the criteria. The next thing we want to talk about is data types. Now, we know what a variable is. Let's see what are the types of variables we have in Deluge. That's what data types are. A static value is called a constant. And there are a couple of data types which are pretty self-explanatory, and you'll figure it out as we go. So string. String is basically any alphanumeric value. It can have spaces, it can have numbers, alphabets, yeah, alphanumeric. So anywho, they're always enclosed in double quotes, and that is why we had to define our names within double quotes because it's an alphanumeric value. The next thing is the big int. Now that is big integer values. Basically, if you go back to our high school mathematics, anything or any number that does not have a decimal point associated to it, regardless of whether it's a negative or a positive value, are integers. And so those are recorded as a big int data type. Then we have decimal. Decimals, of course, we know that it's just the ones with the point between two numbers, and they're separated by a decimal point. So we do support decimal numbers as well. Then we have timestamps, is basically like a date and time format or just the date format. Those that are supported by Zoho Creator is allowed in Deluge. Then we have Boolean. Basically, that's just a true or false. If you let's take the previous example. Now it says when a person or when a student has scored more than 40 and less than 100, then he's passed the exam. Now, let's say that we already know what the what the student has scored. Like the student already scored 70. Now, if you want to ask the system, did the student score 70, and it has to say true or false, it'll also return that sort of data type. Then we have the list, map, and collection. Now, these three are a little bit more advanced and will take some more time. So I want to dedicate the next session, this next 101 session, exclusively for these three, right? Now check out a few examples here. You can see that the invoice number is equal to INV 2019 0808 /01. So basically, this is an alphanumeric value, and therefore it's enclosed in quotes, and it's a string. Now, big integer like age equals 22. Now, because there's no decimal point, this is an integer value. Decimals are like, say, pi is 3.14. We know that. Now, 3.14 is a decimal value, so that is basically a decimal type. Then we have timestamp, which looks something like this. It's got the year, hyphen month, hyphen date, and then it's got a T with the hour, minute, second, plus the time zone, the GMT time zone, right? Then the next is the Boolean, which is just a true or false. Now, if you want to run a sort of business hour setting and you want to say, if it's a weekend, then I don't want to send a follow-up, you can just use is weekend and is equal to false. If it's false, then you can basically continue with the code. I hope that makes sense. Let's try out some examples. I want you to tell me what each of these are in the comment section, or take a screenshot and post it again on the community forums with the hashtag Functions101, and I'll find you with the answers. Next up, operators. Now, there are many types of operators. Let's see the common ones. We have the arithmetic, the relational, and the conditional operators. Arithmetic basically lets you operate on one or two numeric values and returns yet another numeric value. For example, we have binary and unary arithmetic operators. The binary means it uses two values and computes the value to yet another one, like x plus y equals z, or x minus y equals z. Now, in the case of a unary, it just uses one variable, which is plus x or minus x. Ideally, if you remember, the plus x doesn't have any effect on the value itself, but it's still there for whatever reasons, right? All right, so arithmetic operators, we have binary and unary, and then the next thing we're talking about is the relational. Relational compares two values and returns like a true or false output. Now, is x greater than y, or is x lesser than y? Is it equal to y? Is it not equal to y, right? That's what these operators are. Now let me quickly explain each of these. The plus sign, is the addition, the subtraction, the multiplication, and the division. But wondering what the percentage is? That is if you want to get the remainder after you've divided x and y. Whatever remainder you get, if you want to see that value, you put like a percentage in between x and y and you'll get the remainder. Now unary, if it's plus x, it's just going to return the same value. If it's minus x, it's going to return the negative of whatever value you gave for x. Now relational, of course, we have the greater than, the less than, the greater than or equal to, and the less than or equal to, right? Now x equal to y means we know x exactly equals y, and we need to check, we can check that. And if it says x exclamation point equal to y, it means x is not equal to y. Pop quiz. Try these out and let me know which ones are arithmetic and which ones are relational. Don't forget to put in your answers in our forums with the hashtag Functions101, or we will not be able to find you. Okay, now let's go back to our code again. Here we have marks is greater than or equal to 40 and marks is less than or equal to 60. I also have missed out on one more operator here. If you can take a screenshot and point that out to me, post in our forums, you earn extra brownie points. The next operator type is the conditional operator. Now, a conditional operator operates on two Boolean expressions, and each expression may contain a relational or yet another conditional operator. This allows us to write complex design logics. Now, this is the syntax. You take one Boolean expression, put two ampersands in between, and put another Boolean expression. Another type of conditional operators is the one with the two lines in between, and yet another type is the one with the exclamation point. Now, what each of them mean is, and returns true only if both the left and the right Boolean expressions are true, which means, going back to our example, in the first one, if A is greater than B and C is greater than D, then proceed further, which means both A should be greater than B and C should be greater than D. The next one, the two lines, it'll only return true if at least one of them is true. So going back to our example again, if A is greater than B or C is greater than D, then proceed with that. So that's the second one. The last one we saw is just a negation. So it'll return true if the statement is false, and vice versa. Going back here, A is not greater than B. Basically, that's what they're trying to say. Let's go back to our example real quick and see where the conditional operator is. Now here, where we wanted to define whether the marks is greater than 40 or less than 60, now that part is the conditional operator. We've got the operator in between the two conditions, right? Now, I did forget to mention it earlier, but you see this marks.to decimal within two and then two brackets. Basically, marks is a variable, but it can be any type of variable. Now, if you want to specify that you want it in the decimal format as an output, you say marks, that's my variable name, dot, to decimal, and then put the braces after that. Don't worry about it, you don't have to by heart it. As soon as you say marks dot, you'll get a list, you can just choose it from there. The next thing is expressions. A combination of variables, constants, and operators are expressions, very simply put. Everything that you're looking like right now, every piece of code, it's an expression. This example shows you how to concatenate your first name and the last name so that you get a full name. And at the end of it, we're trying to figure out what's the length of your full name. So we say first underscore name. The reason we say underscore is because if it's not between quotes, there's spaces are not allowed within the code. So when you need to put a space, because the word becomes too ambiguous, just use the underscore so that it separates the two words. So in this case, first space name. So first underscore name is within quotes because it's a string. John, semicolon, don't forget the semicolon. Then similarly, we got last underscore name equals, again, Smith within quotes and semicolon. And the full name is obviously the first name and the last name. So first name plus last name. Make sure there's no typo when you type it out from top. And then finally, you got to find out what's the full name's length, right? Let's quickly test that out. Okay, so we got first name is John, semicolon. Last name is Smith, semicolon. Full name is first name and last name, semicolon. Info, full name, dot, let's see, linked. Execute script. Oops, forgot the semicolon. Execute script. Ta-da! So JOHNSMITH. Cool. So we got 9 characters in that name, and we know that now. Let's take yet another example. Try this out with me, guys. Create your name in 2 separate variables, just like John and Smith. Put in your first name separately, last name separately, concatenate them together, and print it out in the uppercase instead of figuring out the length this time. Okay, let me try it. First name is Anu. Last name is Rema. Full name is so much, and this part becomes, where's uppercase? Case, semicolon. And you know what? If you want a space between Anu and Rema, just add a plus here. Add a space between 2 quotes. Because it's a string, and it basically means it's going to give you a space between the first and the last name. So save and execute to see how that looks. Ta-da! I'll show you without that space how it's going to look, right? Meh, that's not my name. My name has a space in between. So plus, I need a space in between. Make sense? Okay, so that's something new we learned. In this example, all of these are expressions, okay? You are allowed to pick out yet another expression and share it on the Functions101 series hashtag. The more you answer, the more points you'll earn, the more goodies you'll attract, and we've also planned on an evaluation-based certification, so stay tuned for that as well. The next in line is comments. You will usually work with a large set of data in real time, and you'd want to identify what each command is for. You can use comments to add description to your script. It basically acts like notes to your code. Now, syntax is, if you just want one line of comment, you just have to put 1 double slash. And if you want to add multiple lines of comments, you got to put them between a forward slash and an asterisk. And then at the end of the entire description, you can put yet another asterisk and then forward slash. Okay? All right, so here in the example, again, John Smith example, we have first name is John, last name is Smith, and then you can write like lines of description between the forward slash asterisk thing, so just go crazy there. And then if you just want to write in one line what you're doing, so the next line you're actually concatenating the 2 names. So you can put that in two forward slashes and say concatenate names. Now that you know what comments are, Let's see a couple of examples. Write any piece of code and explain each line of code as comments. Okay, let's see here. Write your own. Let's say my name or my first name is Anu. Right, we'll go back to our previous example. My last name is Rema. Now, full name is my first name plus a space plus my last name. Now here, let's say we're defining first name. Oops. Now here, we're defining last name. We're concatenating the two names and adding a space in between. Now info, full name is basically print full name, right? Ta-da! Now all of these comments are not displayed in the final output, but it gives you a clear idea of what each line does. So that's what comments are used for. Let's go back to our code again. Here I've mentioned info pass. Info, if you remember, is a debugger. And here within comments I said in case of pass. And you can add another one in case of fail. Again, take a screenshot. Tell me where you would add in case of fail and how. And don't forget the hashtag one, Functions101 again. Okay? Alrighty, that brings us to the last topic for the day, that is conditional statements. Conditional statements are basically used to execute a mentioned condition and evaluate if the results are going to be true or false, right? Now, what I mean to say by that is, if A is greater than B, then execute something, or if A is less than B, then execute something. So that's what an if conditional statement is. We have three types of conditional statements. There is an if, there is an if else, and there is an if else if. Okay, so the main difference is if you can add like a condition and say if it satisfies that condition, do this. Now if you want to say specify if it does not satisfy this condition what to do, you will be using if else, right? Where else means as long as if doesn't satisfy, you move on to else. Else, what is to be done? Now if else if means the first one is not satisfied, and the second one, the else if part, within the else also you're going to mention another criteria, like if A equals B, then do something, else if A is not equal to B, then do something, wherein you're also mentioning the criteria for the else part. So that's where you use the if else if. Okay, we'll see a couple of examples. We'll start off with if. Okay, so it says if condition, within curly brackets you got to mention what you're trying to do if it satisfies the condition. Okay, so for example, if the marks are greater than 40, within curly braces you got to pass the output as pass. Okay, now else if, in this case, if the condition executes, then execute this set of code, else execute this set of code, right? Now in this case, if the marks are greater than 40, then yes, he's passed the exam, else he's failed the exam, right? Now if else if, that's the last one. Here, if the condition A satisfies, then execute whatever is inside the curly braces below that. Else if we mention yet another condition and say only if it satisfies that, go on to that line of statements. For example, if the marks are greater than 40, it's a pass. Else, it's a fail, yes, but if you want to specify if the marks are less than 40, you got to use else if. So guess what, guys? That does bring us to the end of today's session. Let's do a quick recap, okay? We understood the uses of functions, what is Deluge and the full form, what are variables, what are debuggers, data types, operators, conditional operators, expressions, comments, and conditional statements like if else, and if else if. Okay. Now that you have a rough idea on the basics of Deluge, let's move on to more interesting operators in the next webinar. I'll be talking about list and map in detail, and these are more often used in the world of functions. Don't forget to register if you haven't already, and if you have, I'll see you then. To follow us, post your queries as hashtag Functions101, and we'll get back to you on your assignments as well. By the way, some of the custom functions are already available on the gallery and the community pages, so no peeking, okay? Goodies are only for the first 5 answers, so hurry up and show off your new skill on our public forums. I'll see you all again on the 8th of August. Until then, have a good one.